Computer's out of the feed. Live from your home of problems with current-gen gaming consoles, you're listening to Techies Talking Tech Tonight, and I am your host, Trey Comstock. This is the kind of the hard rock show that we like to call T4. I'm joined by our executive editor, Jimmy Principe.
Hello, Internet.
Hello, Jimmy.
Also, didn't we solve networking like years ago?
We've been talking about networking for a while. And I just read the book, Where Wizards Stay Up Late, where they claim to have made major strides in networking in the 70s. I haven't seen those.
God, if they made major strides in the 70s, how terrible must it have been?
Well,
That's what you really have to think about.
The point of the book is it didn't exist, right? They didn't exist. There wasn't computer networking.
Networked.
There was connections between terminals and mainframes, and that was it. And they took the technology of those times and created the internet, and then participated in the first internet flame war. It's the internet. But I digress. In something that I almost kind of hope starts a flame war. As you guys probably know as listeners at this point, Jimmy and I both now have Xbox One consoles. We gave the Xbox One our device of the year in 2013, a prestigious honor. And generally speaking, I like its ambition. I like it as a device, and I think it had a really great year last year in terms of console exclusives that were at least meaningful as opposed to the PS4, which had almost no meaningful exclusives. But I had a painful reminder that technological progress is not always progress inherently. I wanted to play Forza Horizon 2. It's a great driving game. It didn't quite make our top 5, but it was certainly a contender.
We did talk about it.
And we did talk, you got to mention in our Game of the Year discussions, it's certainly the game I'm playing my way through right now. Because I don't have the mental energy at this point in the semester to dig into a big story-based game. I just want to drive some cars. I want to drive in a club with my friends.
Yep. We tried that.
But so last Tuesday actually, I sat down in my living room. I had 3 hours, and very seldom do I have 3 hours where I can video game. This just, and it tends to only happen on Tuesdays. And so I wanted to play some Forza Horizon. And I noticed that it was in the middle of installing an update. And so I'll just let it finish installing that update, and then I can start playing. And then it just said, queued. And every time I would go to restart the update, it would go, installing, 78%. Queued. And no matter what I did, and I worked on this fiddled with this for about half an hour, wouldn't do it. So it's finally fine. This is, in the end, a PC. So I uninstalled.
Did you try restarting your computer?
I did. I tried all of those things. Like I said, I fought with it for half an hour, and so finally realized this is a PC. This is software that is installed on a PC. So I uninstalled the software from my PC. Uninstalling it, very quick process. So then I had to reinstall Forza Horizons 2, which takes 2 hours, apparently.
You had to re-download the whole file.
Well, it's not re-download. I have the disc.
No, you still have to download the... So
there's an update. There's a several gigabyte update that you have to download, and it has to install. And so 2.5 hours into this process, I had yet to play any Forza Horizons and was just sitting there watching Top Gear reruns while I'm watching this thing.
Amping yourself up for your Forza Horizon.
And then finally, my 3-hour break was up, and I needed to go do a thing, and so I didn't get to play Forza Horizon. I had to circle back the next night, finish the installation process, and now it's running fine. But it used to be, Jimmy, when I wanted to play a video game, and this is why I was a console gamer. My brother was a PC gamer. He played on consoles too, but he had the big gaming rig when we were teenagers. And so he would deal with, my RAM is at the wrong voltage, and so the computer's not working. They just had the RAM was the wrong voltage, and so the computer wouldn't work.
That happens.
He would deal with these things. I would put Rogue Leader into my GameCube and play Rogue Leader. Or I would take a cartridge and I would slot it into my N64 or my Game Boy, and I would play a video game.
Whatever it was. And then when you were done, you would take the cartridge out of the thing.
And you know what's fascinating? When I wanted to play an Xbox 360 game, I took out a disc, put it in a disc tray, and then played a video game in relatively that order, that succinctly. And now, here in this uber advanced generation of consoles, I waited 3 hours to first solve a technical problem and then wait for it to install. Like, this is Microsoft Combat Flight Simulator 2 in what was that, year 2000. Sometimes it just feels like I'm going backwards. I'm going back into the mire of 1990s, early 2000s PC gaming.
Where the hardware doesn't quite work right and the software is not really like working.
Well, where it requires technical knowledge to game. One of the things I have technical knowledge, more than I need, probably, right? I like a good technical challenge. But I solve technical challenges essentially professionally. So there are times, my off time, where I want to and I love fighting the good technical fight, right? I wouldn't have built this rig if I didn't love a good technical fight. But sometimes I want my off time. And my off time, I don't want to be dealing with a technical fight, and that's one of the reasons I like console gaming as opposed to PC gaming. The other is I can do it on my couch.
Yeah, no, that's a big positive for console gaming. But I mean, I ran into this with release day of Destiny.
Yeah.
I pre-purchased it, waiting for Destiny to install. Ran into this over Christmas time. I was visiting my parents, and my brother had his Xbox One. And so I had the physical disc of Halo, the Master Chief Collection. I said, I got this. I will put the Halo Master Chief Collection disc in. Well, guess what? It didn't ship with multiplayer. So
it didn't.
It first had to install a 40 gig game from the disc.
And then a 27 gigabyte
and then
update.
Download a 27 gig update
Mm-hmm.
while the rest of the family was trying to do like things in the house.
And at some point, Xbox Live was hacked.
Yeah, and then Xbox Live kept going down. So we let it sit for about half a day until my brother finally said, forget it, just uninstall it.
Right, that's what I had to do with Forza Horizon.
Well, but he was just like, no, don't even bother installing it. It's not worth it. It takes too long.
Right. It used to be you put the cartridge in the... So I just bought a Sega Nomad. Why? Because I like crazy things. It's, the screen's the size of a postage stamp. It's,
It's not the size of a postage stamp.
It's huge. It gets kind of oddly warm. But I love it because no one bought it, and it's a ridiculous concept that someone wanted to mobilize a Sega Genesis. Just the Nomad, ever since it came out, has always blown my ever-loving mind. It was like, as a kid, even as a kid, we traveled a lot. We were always coming up with kludgy ways to have not just Game Boys, but have console gaming on the go. The Nomad solves all of that in maybe the worst possible way.
All of the compromises you don't want to make with none of the positives.
Right, because it has no real battery life. So it has to be plugged in. So it's perfect for my couch. It's my second screen experience. And I got that idea from you. So it's my second screen experience.
Yeah,
so
it's right about over there. Right by where all those discs are.
When I'm waiting for my Xbox to install something, I can play a video game on a failed console from the 90s.
Well, I mean, that's like... I didn't tell you this earlier, but with the PS4, I've been playing my remote on my Vita.
Yeah.
And I was playing this. This weekend, my project was to try to rebuild every computer I own, basically. And I was more successful at that than I had anticipated I would be. The machine I'm currently podcasting off of is running Windows 10 Technical Preview.
Oh, Jesus.
God
help us.
Certain things are very strange. Like, I can't see the image of myself and my Skype.
What really matters is that I can see the image of
so
you
I'm
on
just
Skype.
trusting you that you can see me.
I can. It's there. I'm watching. I have many screens monitoring many things.
So rebuild that machine. Put a hard drive on the network. And proceeded to keep rebuilding stuff. So there's a lot of sitting while stuff was installing. And so I was playing, watching Netflix on the Xbox One while playing video games on the PS4 on the Vita. And I reached this point in Infamous Second Son where I just kept dying on this one like boss level. I said, screw it. And so I flipped the AV receiver to the PS4, grabbed the PS4 controllers, like, I'm going to do this. Sure enough, first time.
Right.
I was like, wow, this is way faster and better.
Sure. I mean, yes. The second screen stuff is kind of a kludge, but it's also really nice. I mean, I had the same problem in Mario Kart last year. If there was just a race that I just could not get past on the small screen, and the Wii U is really built for this, but on the small screen in the tablet of the Wii U, I would just switch back to the main input for briefly beat that race and then go back to it. To me, I don't want the second screen that the advertisers are going to provide me. Because generally speaking, there is very little that I'm really interested in enough that I want two screens doing the same thing, right? I don't want their Twitter plugin. If I'm going to read Twitter, I'll read my own damn Twitter feed. That's why I built a Twitter feed. Or I'm going to game on a handheld of some kind. My
Whether
Nomad.
it's a phone or...
I honestly, since I stopped playing threes, I don't play games on my phone. I just don't. Touch controls are novel for certain things, right? Threes, it was great for Angry Birds, Cut the Rope, but I don't get into endless runners. I don't. It's just hold and unhold. I don't know. I want buttons, and so right now it's the Nomad. I'm trying to resurrect my Game Gear. And then soon, what we'll be talking about on the show next week is the new 3DS. So I'll start playing my way through Ocarina of Time and then Majora's Mask back to back, because that's how they're arranged. One flows literally straight into the other.
Oh, interesting.
So
I need to get Majora's Mask then, because I have Ocarina of Time for the N64.
Right, yeah.
So I'll need to play that all the way through.
Yeah, play
and
Ocarina
then play Majora's
right afterwards.
With my cartridge-based gaming system.
Right, but the 3DS, I mean, it has a download option, but Nintendo games hold their value so well in the used market, as we've discussed, that why would you ever download a Nintendo game?
Don't do it. You'll regret it.
Even if you're not going to resell it right away, right? Like, I'm not going to resell Mario Kart anytime soon, or Super Smash Brothers for Wii U. But someday, just like I did with my copy of Melee, I will sell it at some point, because at some point I just won't want all of that around my house. And so just with it,
and you'll get all of the money
I'll get all of the money back, basically. Especially for a first-party Nintendo title. If I wait 5 years, 6 years, I'll get all that money back. Again, I paid $30 for a Wii version of Mario Party. $30.
I paid $35 for Wii Mario Kart.
And $35 for an N64 Mario Kart. Well, actually, right now, I paid that. But
yeah.
That's sitting in a box, needs to get shipped.
Details.
I digress. But that was what gaming was. What gaming is now is in so many ways better, right? The narrative focus, the story-driven games, the graphical quality and handling of driving games. It's just the game worlds themselves are just incredible, mind-blowing. I love it. I'm also playing my way through Uncharted 3 right now. What a game, Uncharted 3. Totally deserving of all of its accolades. I liked the first two, and everyone says 2 is the best. I disagree. I think 3 is the best. That game is phenomenal. In terms of story, in terms of mechanics, in terms of how good Nathan Drake is, how good looking he is, really. This rugged man. I'm not one of those like, I just want to get back to like the 16-bit days. No, I'm tired of that art style. I'm tired of those mechanics. Mechanically and graphically and story, I love where gaming is now.
However, we've given up a lot to get here.
Well, we're stuck in this halfway thing, right? Where it used to be that we wanted to run them off of discs. Now that's loud and slow. I'll give them. It's loud and slow. And so you want to be able to run this off a hard drive. Okay, great. Well, Microsoft wanted to go to the all download feature, and we, and me included, didn't let them. We fetched, and they balked, and they turned their head. Great. But what that's left us with is these are PCs. I mean, literally, they're x86 processors. And soon it'll be running, the Xbox One will be running real Windows 10. I mean, it's just a PC. And so now it is the logic that we have on the PC side. You are either downloading and installing or installing from a disk. Now, you have to leave the disk in there as a form of DRM. That doesn't bother me. The issue is the time that involves. And they want to say, oh, it's quick. Oh, it's not, it's negligible. It took me 2 hours to install Forza Horizon 2. And on, normal person internet, I mean, I have 25, 30 megabytes per second down. A 27 gigabyte download is significant.
I have 50, and it still took me to download Destiny on opening on release day. 16 gig file took me better part of 3 hours. Right. Now, part of that was their side.
Sure, but I mean, even still, I mean, there's this kind of time gap between us and our gaming. And this really only exists right on PC, where it always has. Although Steam's pretty good, it's still reliant on download speeds. And PC, Xbox, PS4. Wii U still functions like a console. 3DS still functions like a console. Vita still functions like a console. It's just this new generation is so PC-like to the point where I think we've lost that speed. Man, I don't know about the point, but something that I really valued about console gaming. Next, they'll be telling me I need a keyboard and a mouse, which I cannot abide. For the games I actually play, for the most part, when I love RTSs, or city building games. I play those sometimes on a PC. Then you need a keyboard and a mouse. And obviously, I understand that first-person shooters are best played with PC and mouse. I, too, grew up playing Counter-Strike and then vomiting. Because I've talked this before. This is before I realized that I suffer from motion sickness to the point where I can't play first-person games. I was just like, why do I feel terrible? God, this is awful. We would be doing these all-night LAN parties at NetZone, and I would just be,
NetZone.
Right, yeah, we do these lock-ins at NetZone, and so, or even like every Saturday afternoon, we'd be at NetZone, because that way we all could line up on computers, and we play Warcraft 3. Great. RTS, it's like, oh, let's play Counter-Strike, or let's play Medal of Honor. And it's like, I really liked never really liked Counter-Strike. I'm not fast enough. I've never been fast enough for that game. But I really liked Medal of Honor. And I was like, why do I feel like I need to vomit, man? Like, this, I don't know. I just feel bad. And it took years for me to put two and two together to say, oh, I may be able to drive in first person, but I cannot move and shoot in first person without feeling like I need to vomit. Right. Yes.
Yes. Excellent.
Fantastic. So, in continuing this kind of what's wrong with the Xbox One now, what did we go through this evening, Jimmy?
Yeah. So this evening, Trey and I decided
it's Tuesday, so I could game.
Yeah, just prior to this show, I looked on my Xbox and I said, "Oh, Trey's playing Forza. Let's try this driving in a club with our friends thing."
That's literally the name of our club.
Yeah, it's drive in a club with friends. So I booted up, and Trey and I are both struggling. First off, for whatever reason, the audio wasn't going through. So I called him and put it on speakerphone. Like right, a logical person.
I'm sitting there with my Beats headphones on while playing Forza. I looked like some ad for the modern man. My iPhone, my Beats headphones, and my Xbox One, while I also have the TV snapped in the corner. It's just, there was, a lot of media happening.
So we try to get it set up, get the party going, and get some lights, everything. And you're able to connect, and I'm not.
Easy. I'm getting into all of these matches, and then so I get into the match, and then Jimmy's not in matches. These road trips. They're called
Road trips.
And so I get in there. It's like, and Jimmy's not there. And Jimmy's not there. I was like, hey, it's working for me. Although the party system isn't perfect on the Xbox, we had figured that part out.
It's not perfect on the PS4 either.
No. It used to. The only problem is it used to be easier. You could do parties within games. You didn't have to back out to an external interface to form a party. Anyways, I digress.
You can do it within Forza. It gave you that option, and you can do the same thing on like with Destiny on the PS4. You can jump into a fire team of your friends in game. You don't have to back
that's
out.
progress.
At least that's been my experiences. So anyways, we can't figure this out. It keeps telling me that it's unable to reach the server. And I keep going, what do you mean you're unable to reach the server?
I'm on the internet.
The 50 megabit per second. So I'm like, all right. So first we backed out and tried to see if another game would do online content. I used Assassin's Creed Unity. And sure enough, it did.
So it wasn't the internet, and it wasn't his Xbox Live. It wasn't his account specifically.
Yeah, so I restarted my router. That didn't fix it. And so then I do what you always do in these situations. I turn to Google, and or actually in this case, I binged it, because I bing and decide. This is a little search bar on Windows 10. I'll probably talk more about Windows 10 next week.
Yeah, and I'll talk about the new 3DS.
But so I just typed into the search bar and said, give me web results. Forza Horizon 2 not connecting. Apparently, on certain routers, you have to turn on port forwarding.
Oh, God.
For the Azure servers to work right.
Again, where I used to talk about how console gaming made it simple, and PC gaming is where you wanted to futz with things like ports. Forwarding.
Like, so the process went something like this. I went, port forwarding. I think I know how to do that. Opened up my router, went, firmware version says it's version 1. I've had this router for 3 years. I just want to bet there's another version of this firmware. So I looked it up. Sure enough, we're on version 3 of the firmware. Yeah. Installed the firmware. Well, the firmware nuked all of my settings and caused everything connected to the internet to just lose its damn mind. So I installed the firmware. Renamed all of my SSIDs. It's a dual band, so I had to make sure that they matched for both bands. And get everything reconnected to the internet. Well, then it told me, all right, we can't connect to the internet. And I go, I'm on speakerphone with Trey at this point, and I go, it won't let me connect to the internet. We may not be doing a show tonight.
Right. It's like, okay. What hath God wrought?
I think I restarted the router, and that fixed it. But then I still haven't forwarded a port. All I've done is update my firmware for my router and make it work again. So then I go into the port forwarding menu, and I keep trying to add this stupid port. And I was like, what settings do I have to use? Luckily, the forum I had found on the Forza server that told me how to do this said, hey, you need to put this exact port for the Xbox Live service to go through. So I set this all up, and then Trey goes, hey, you're listed as online. I said, all right, let's go over there and try this. Sure enough, just like that, booted right up, good to go. And from that point forward, it was great. But I have a medium to medium high level of technical expertise when it comes to these things. And even I went, you've got to be kidding me. You want me to do port forwarding so that you can access the internet from the Xbox? Do I have to assign it to the Xbox?
Yeah. Dumb. That's
dumb.
It's just bad.
Take your ports and forward them up your ass, Microsoft.
It kind of makes you start feeling that way at a point, yeah.
Yeah, it was so frustrating to have to go through this process to do something that was advertised as a feature of Forza when it was released. And probably the thing that made us the most interested to get it, for both of us to get it, was this very simple feature that allowed Xbox Live to access the Azure servers.
Yeah, and all the things that implies with the drivatars, and I mean, there's a lot.
But all my drivatars were working, so that's the thing. Like drivatars were working. Now, I did mess with the router this weekend as part of my messing with all my computers. And I just checked before we started the show. The external drive is not working. So I have to go back into the router and double check it. The other thing is, remember what your router password is, because if you forget it, you're screwed. You have to go in and manually press the reset button on it, because that's what I had to do. So yeah, long story short, console gaming is not the ease that it used to be of just plug and play, basically. I mean, I hardwired it. I tried so many different things before I got to port forwarding.
Right, and it makes you wonder, because consoles are marketed in a different way than PCs, right? PCs, it is marketed to a much more hardcore crowd. I think it's the failure of the Steam box, in a way, is to not take into account what PC gaming is and who PC gaming is for. And it's not for people who want the ease. They know enough that the idea of swapping in a graphics card's no big deal. That, port forwarding, whatever. Or I'll just go on a forum and find it. It's just a different mindset.
Most of it's just, I'll go on a forum and find it. That's my mentality.
Right.
Someone else has had this problem.
But console gaming is aimed at the living room. It's aimed at the non-technical. It's aimed at, the Xbox One has voice controls, so it's less intimidating to deal with. And yet, here we are dealing with, it has basically hung during an installation, and we had to reconfigure a router setting in order to play multiplayer on a game. You got to feel for the tech support people, but it's almost as if we've gotten too ambitious as to what these things are. They're capable of doing it, but we're pushing too much the bleeding edge of what we can actually pull off with ease. People always criticize Apple for not supporting the latest and greatest and usually waiting a little bit. But this is one of those times where you start to see the benefit of that, because they get it at the point where it is really just going to work, because we have enough experience with it now that it just goes. I feel like this latest generation of consoles, we're not there. The stability of the environment and the interoperability between all the pieces that are involved in it, routers, ISPs, data centers, when Xbox Live goes down, all of these things that the ordinary person is just going, technology is no better than it was in the 90s. When in reality, it's so much better than it was in the 90s. But console gaming is more difficult than it was in the 90s.
Yeah, when in doubt, just boot up the N64.
Right, or just go to your phone, right? Because the App Store doesn't crash that often. Not as often as Xbox Live. And you have a wealth of dumb, time-wasting games. Are there so much better games on these platforms? Yes. But the barrier to entry, beyond just cost, just the knowledge and mindset and all of that has gotten a lot more difficult. So, console gaming is harder than it was in the 90s. And on that bombshell, it's time to end. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's Techies Talking Tech tonight. You have any feedback for us? Podcast at textlesscall.com, facebook.com/textlesscall, pinterest.com/textlesscall, or at textlesscall on the Twitters. Good night.